All right. Let me guess. Nice guy. You're stuck again. You've been overthinking a decision for days, maybe weeks, maybe years. You've asked everyone on your committee of mediocrity for advice, and you played out every scenario, and you're still paralyzed. And here's the truth: nice guys struggle to decide because they're afraid to lead. They're afraid, really, in their head, they're afraid to fuck up. They're afraid to be wrong, to make mistakes, to be a failure, afraid to disappoint other people, afraid to lose money, afraid to lose whatever they have, afraid to trust themselves, afraid of their own wants and needs, afraid to take a stand. So raise your hand if any of those apply to you. Okay. All right. Let me see your hands. So this is your wake-up call. Welcome to the Nice Guy Show. I'm your host, Ari Graff, and I'm joined by my co-hosts, Faisal Kokar and Chuck Chapman. So I'm thinking about this topic because historically, I am Captain Indecisive. I'm embarrassed to say this, but I used to almost pride myself on being indecisive. In fact, in my wedding speech back in 2010, I referred to my bride as the George W. Bush of the relationship. Do you remember when he was president and he referred to himself as the decider? Well, I referred to myself as the Obama of the relationship because I viewed myself as the deliberator, someone who took the time to carefully think through my decisions and get a lot of opinions. Whatever your politics are, and it's fair to criticize Bush's decisions like the Iraq War, but most people would benefit from being more decisive, not less, especially nice guys. So, Chuck, do you see yourself as a decisive man? Why or why not?
I'm much better at it, but there's still, that debate, that fear of, making the wrong decision. It's something I've worked on quite a bit, but yeah, I would say I haven't decided quite yet if I'm a good decider or a bad decider. I'm still debating that. So
that tells me enough. Yeah. All right. So let me stick with you, Chuck. What are the types of things you say in your head when you're being indecisive?
I think the most debate that's going on is I don't want to make a mistake. I don't want to fuck things up, and I don't want to have to go back and fix something. Yeah. So I think that those are the things that tend to keep me stuck making a decision rather than trusting my instincts. And like I said, I'm getting much better at it. And I've learned a lot from my wife, actually, in terms of like, she's actually a really good decider, I think. But her indecisiveness is not like, I'm wanting her to decide and she's deciding, I don't want to do this, like when we were looking for a house, for example, like we saw 100 different houses or something, probably 50 to be more realistic. And every time we'd go into a house, she's like, nope, this isn't it. And I saw it as indecisive, but she was just really waiting for the right one to come along. And once we walked into this place, she was like, yep, this is it. This is where. And she was right. It was, so sometimes I see her indecisiveness as she's not making a decision. That's not really indecisiveness. I think that's more of like, she's just deciding this isn't the right thing. But for me, I have to, sit and contemplate and, research it out. I think we talked about this a while back about, when I bought a printer and like I spent hours researching this printer, rather than just like going and getting one. So yeah, it's something that I'm better at. But if I'm thinking about it, one of the things I actually kind of enjoy the hunt, So sometimes it can be just a part of it is like actually kind of enjoy the hunt. But I think what we're talking about here is the fear of making a mistake, which keeps us paralyzed from making a decision, which keeps us from moving forward in our life.
Yeah. It's really interesting what you were saying about your wife, that you perceive her as being indecisive
Yeah.
by passing up on things. But in fact, this is her way of being decisive.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
she's actually trusting herself that
Yeah.
this doesn't feel right.
Yeah. I'm going to wait till the right one comes along. She's very good at that.
Faisal, what about you? You seem like a pretty decisive guy to me. Am I wrong?
It's it's something I worked on, like Chuck, you said as well. It's something I worked on. I think what's really deliberating is that my perfectionism comes in, and just making sure that everything's right, perfect, optimized, maximum. If it's not that, then I'm always thinking about, well, who do I need to speak to? Who do I get? When you said about what's going in my head, I don't really have a dialogue in my head. It's more about the feeling of getting a really good confirmation, like this is the way to go. This is what you need to do. So for me, it's like if I've been working on my five fracture framework, and I'm just constantly changing it. It's like changing it all the time. And I've been at this for a long time. And then I'm taking it back. I'm like, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? All I'm waiting for someone to say is, fuck, that's it. That's the one. And then it comes back and I'm thinking, maybe still not it. So it keeps coming back, and things I do get stuck in loops and ruminate on that. So, but usually I'm waiting for that confirmation. And I like what Chuck, you said as well. Sometimes we like that. Like, for example, I've spent hours buying technological stuff and doing research on this, and I enjoy that path, that research. It is like the hunt. So maybe that is a modern day hunt of like us just spending hours trying to find a little USB stick or something and just spend hours on it. Right?
Well, how do you know when something is a hunt versus it's kind of mental masturbation? How do you differentiate? Do you have a way of doing that?
Well, that's a good question. How do I know if it's just well, maybe they overlap. Maybe there's an overlap. Maybe there's a point where you get to is like, this is becoming unproductive. I'm not going to really get the results for it. If I'm just looking for a small thing that is not going to have a massive impact in my life, then I know that, okay, I'm wasting time here. If it's a big decision like buying a house or a car or moving, those need a lot more. You need to invest a lot more time in it. If it's like a small thing for a couple of dollars or something, and you're just wasting a lot of time on it, then you're thinking, okay, I'm just stuck in rumination. Maybe it's masochism. I'm enjoying this pain of like just getting it, researching on it.
Yeah, I've decided like if I'm trying to buy a printer or something like that, I'm better off just buying something a little more expensive and just moving on and saving the time. So that's something that I've decided. So where has indecision really killed you and led to regret or missed opportunities? Is there really anything in your past where it's really fucked you over?
Well, not really fucked me over, but there was a lot of things in business. So I had a really awesome internet business, which was worth, several millions. And I didn't really decide on what to do with it. I didn't make a decision of, okay, should I sell it? Should I just expand on it? Do something with it? I just kind of just went along with it and hadn't really had a real decisive trajectory for it. And that just faded away. And as my marriage faded away, that faded away. So that was like one of the things I can really remember. Other things are like when you're going on dates or date nights and you try to choose, she's like, what do you want to eat? I'm like, okay, I do fancy this. So if I do make a decision, then it's like, okay, well, I remember I was dating this girl and she flew over and we spent the weekend together, and I'm hungry, she's hungry, and she's getting from hungry to hangry. And I like to scope the area. I like to look around. I don't like to make a quick decision about food. I want to know which are like all the cool places. I want to go through it. My background's computer systems. So I want to go through a process of elimination. So I want to see everything around, and then I want to eliminate to the best one. And that's the way I kind of like function. So I just wanted to walk around, and she's getting really annoyed, and she's not actually expressing it, but I can feel the tension, and she's getting angrier and angry and angry. And then at one point she's like, make a decision. I'm like, I'm not ready yet. But I just had to find a few places. Finally, we found a restaurant, and as soon as we sat down, I said, quickly, give me some bread. Give her some bread. And she calmed down. And as soon as she calmed down, she said, actually, this is a really good decision. I said, look, I can go without the food, but as long as I've eliminated some processes, then I'm good. Food doesn't bother me if I've eaten or not. I'd rather go through the hunger and the agony and eliminate and choose something good.
I never like to have a bad meal. That's one of my rules.
Yeah. I think as you were talking about, one of the things I was realizing is there's a couple of things that comes up for me when and I think a restaurant is a really good, sort of metaphor for this is because my wife and I were just doing this the other night when we were walking around, and it was like there was all these restaurants close to each other with a walking distance, and we'd walk to one and I was like, nah, the music's too loud. Let's go someplace else. And we go to the next one. I was like, I don't really like what's on the menu. Let's go to the next one.
Sounds like my parents.
And finally, we're walking around, and there was this restaurant, and it was a little bit more expensive. And she's like, let's just go here. And I'm like, oh, it's too expensive, And she's like, let's just go here. And, so she made the decision on that one. Like I said, she's a good decider. But my two things are going on. A, when I'm hungry, I have a hard time making decisions. I didn't want to disappoint her, and I didn't want to disappoint myself. And there was this big amount of FOMO, fear of like, we're going to go to the next place, because I'm sure you've had this experience where you make a decision and then the next place you go, you see the the thing that you actually wanted.
Yeah.
And you're like, I already bought the thing and if I would have just waited, one more store, and I would have, and I think that's the thing that sort of also prohibits me from making decisions is I'm afraid that I'm going to make a decision, and then just after that, I'm going to find the thing that I really wanted and be disappointed. But I've had the exact opposite happen too, where you see something, you're like, I should get that, or I should do that. And then you don't. And then you're thinking about it like, I wish I could find that thing again. And you never find it again.
But here's the thing. How do you know what's going to be the best outcome, actually? How do you know that first thing you chose was better than the meal you thought that would be your ideal?
Well, experiences, right? Experiences and reference points. Sure. So you could have some data. You could have some data to go with that. And then
I think nice guys are data junkies, and we want to make the perfect decisions, and we value making the so-called perfect decisions over the more efficient decisions. So
we don't want to make mistakes.
We don't want to make mistakes. So
yeah,
I'm certainly guilty of this. For me, I feel like my indecisiveness was one of the killers in my marriage. Like that was part of my nice guy. So that's part of why I wanted to do this episode, because I think that it's part of what killed the attraction. Like both you and I, Chuck, were talking about our wives being the deciders.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I kind of prided myself on that, and I never want to be that way again. It's not, you guys know me. I'm still a deliberative person. I'm not really impulsive, but
You sure?
I have.
You sure on that?
Okay, sometimes I'm impulsive, but I have swung the pendulum back towards the decisive direction. So I believe decisiveness is something that we can practice.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that we can treat as a value, and now I treat it as a value. So that's what I would encourage people listening. If you view yourself as, well, I'm just an indecisive person, that's a choice in itself. So the ultimate choice is choosing to be decisive. But that requires being willing to tolerate discomfort and uncertainty and feeling like a failure. Like, this year I started this new group coaching business, and I pretty much burned the boats of my old coaching and therapy business. I fired my therapy clients. I didn't tell them I was firing them, but I ended with them. I mean, I didn't just say, like, I'm not showing up next week. I gave them a few months, but what I'm saying is that I made a decisive decision that, coaching is my direction now. I'm going to burn the boats. I'm going to make space just for coaching. And that was scary. And I lost some stable income doing that. And I don't know if it was the quote unquote right decision. But it was deciding to go all in on what I wanted. And this is another thing that I think nice guys struggle with, is that they don't trust what they feel passionate about, or they don't even know what they feel passionate about. They don't allow themselves to get there. One of my clients, and it's a coaching client that I had for a couple of years, he was mid 40s, and he was struggling with whether he wanted to leave his partner. They weren't married, but a longtime partner, because he wanted a child, but he didn't trust that he could raise a child or find someone to have a child with, that he could be a good dad. So he didn't trust his ability to make this decision. And, we did coaching for a couple of years. So those were a couple of years where he wasn't making a decision about it. He didn't even make a decision by the end of our coaching. So, this is what really pains me about nice guys, or one of the things is when I see them sitting on a decision, and his wanting to have a child was something that was consistent throughout his adult life, that this was something he had in his head that he wanted. So nice guys don't trust their own wants. Like, you don't have to question so much if you want something like that. You just need to go after it and commit and make a decision. And even having a kid, you can make mistakes. Okay, so what if it doesn't work out with the mother of your child? All three of us are examples of men who've successfully made it through divorce and continued to be good parents. So that's not a good excuse for not having a kid. If that's part of what drives you. So I want the people that I work with to get more decisive, and to realize, like, basically anything you can course correct.
So how do you train them to be more decisive? What kind of stuff do you guys do?
One of the things I do is just get them to practice making smaller decisions and trusting themselves on smaller decisions. So maybe you're not ready to take the plunge on breaking up with your longtime partner so you can meet someone to have a child with, but can you take the plunge of having the hard conversations and getting clear with that person about what that you're with, about what you want? That's being decisive. So there's all kinds of ways we could be decisive even on a daily basis. Even just about choosing your restaurant. Like, it drives me crazy going out to dinner with my brother, like partly because I see myself in him, but like he is the person who will always engage the waitress or waiter about like like, what do you recommend and what's in season, and then what do you really like, and it's agonizing going out to dinner with him because he's indecisive. And like me and his wife, we always roll our eyes going out to dinner with him, and I don't think he gets how much this turns people off.
I think that's it too, is like, there's this, I mean, as you were talking about your client and even your brother, I'm thinking like how frustrating it is. Like I've had clients like this that won't make a decision, and it's like week after week we meet, and it's like Groundhog's Day. They just won't make a decision, and you just want to grab them by the shoulders and just like, make a decision, man, come on, And so if I'm feeling that frustration from somebody else, imagine if you're you're leading a relationship or a business or anything like that, and you're not making a decision. And I think I heard it said once that that's what leaders do, is they make decisions, and that a good leader only makes good decisions about 30% of the time,
Right.
So that's a good ratio. That means you're going to fail more than you're going to succeed. And it's the fear of failure, that keeps us from making the decision, but it's that lack of decision making that keeps us stuck in the failure. So we have to kind of get over ourselves a little bit. And I think this is where courage comes into play, of I'm going to make a decision, even though this might be the wrong decision or might have the least favorable results. I'd rather make a decision than stay stuck. When I was, this is years ago, and I remember talking to a friend of mine. I was talking about leaving the organization, and he said, when a monkey's
the mafia.
Yeah, the mafia. And they were like, I'm like, just when I wanted to get out, they pulled me back in. And but he said, when a monkey's swinging through the jungle, he's got to let go of the vine behind him in order to move forward. And I always, saw that like this little monkey kind of stuck between these two vines, just like holding on, not making an indecision. And that you've got to you have to decide to let go of the thing that was in the past to be able to move forward. So I think that's part of just being a leader, and whether it's like business, relationship, your own life, is you have to make a decision. And the fear of making the wrong decision has to be like, okay, well, if I make the wrong decision, I'm going to pivot and I'll learn from the mistake, to help me the next time. But I think that's what gets us stuck.
One thing you said that I liked is just that leaders may only make good decisions a small portion of the time, but they're valued for their decisiveness, not so much that they're making so many good decisions. It's because they're actually decisive.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, Napoleon Hill said that successful people make decisions quickly and change them slowly. And then unsuccessful people make decisions very slowly and change them quickly. So in the book Think and Grow Rich, he was saying that when you have at least 60 to 80% of the information, great leaders make a decision and then move forward with that. So even nice guys, we kind of tend to have like, I need 100%. If it's not 100%, then I'm going to stay in this indecisiveness. And I identified that the real problem here is the ego is really afraid of failure. So the ego, when it's afraid of failure, looking bad, being judged, being ridiculed, being criticized, being shamed, it doesn't want to get it wrong. But in doing so, that it's getting judged and criticized and shamed for not making a decision. And when I work with the guys as well, it's like Chuck was saying about, it's about letting go. A lot of the time there's a lot of fear of loss. There's a fear of making a mistake, getting it wrong, and then not being able to change it. And most of the times, a lot of guys look at certain situations and they blow it out of proportion and they make a real big deal out of it. So, for example, like choosing something, it's like in their head, it's like this is a big thing. If I get it wrong, and I can see the primal reaction to it is if I get it wrong, it could mean danger, death. I can see that from a primal point, and an instinctual response is mistakes like those, bad decisions could lead to death. So therefore, when I'm really operating my primal part and not being really conscious about something, I exacerbate all the things in my head. So it's like when I'm working with the guys, it's like helping them understand letting go, making mistakes, and constantly making mistakes. It's like the fear of rejection when the guys are going, I don't want to be rejected. So how do you get over rejection? Lots more rejection. That's the way. It's through it, not around it, avoid it. You want to get over rejection? Get rejected a lot. It's really simple. So making decisions, I am now constantly practicing making decisions and then letting go. Letting go was a really hard part. It's like letting go, whatever it's going to be. And I see that women are much better at making more decisions than guys are. I see around me, they're like killing it, make decisions quickly. They don't overthink it, overanalyze it, break it down, having to just dissect it. They're like, okay, let's just make a decision, just do with it. And I read somewhere, I think women need like 30, 40% of the information to make a decision, whereas guys need higher probability. And it gets back to Gaddanswer days as well.
That's so interesting. Yeah, well, women have the reputation as being kind of more intuitive decision makers.
I think they're differentiated more as well. They know what they want more selves, whereas guys who are usually nice guys are quite enmeshed. And when they're enmeshed, they're not their own individual. So therefore, they usually take on other people's emotions, other people's opinions and ideas. And because they're codependent on everybody else, they want to make sure that the other person isn't disappointed well, I get it wrong. Whereas differentiated guys who are quite individualized, make more concrete decisions because they know what they want. And if you ask most guys, bad decision makers, you ask this question, what do you want? They're like, I don't know. And that's when you know they're going to struggle.
Yeah, you think about like decisions in the bedroom, like that's something that can totally kill the moment with a woman, is if you're indecisive about what you want.
Which hole you want.
Right.
I can't decide. Do I want the upper, the lower, the in between?
Or asking questions. I think that's a real big turnoff. Should I? Do you mind? Can I? Is that okay? And again, it's like that, not trusting themselves or making a decision and leading with it. And I think guys don't really calibrate as well. If they get something wrong, they think I'm scolded, and it's the final. I don't want to be told off. I don't want to get it wrong, and it's the final. They haven't been taught that you can get things wrong, make a mistake, and recover from it. So recovery, even in conflict, they don't realize that you can recover from it. It's not finalized.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, we also personalize things quite a bit too. So if you know, or if she says, I don't want that, you know, we feel like she's saying, I don't want you. And it's not you, it's just whatever it is that you're, the option that's presented at the moment. And I think that's coming back to what you said, Faisal, is we personalize it. We take it personally rather than just kind of realize, oh, that's just, a preference on her part. She doesn't want to go to this particular restaurant. And we look at it as like, oh, if I make the wrong decision, she's not going to want me. Why would I want to be with somebody who can't give me what I want? Right. And so we feel like, oh, we have to do everything that she wants in order for her to accept us. And so our fear of disappointing her comes around to basically the fear of rejection or the fear of like, she's going to leave me.
Yeah.
And,
yeah.
And I think that the exact opposite happens is when we don't make decisions, we actually fulfill that self-fulfilling prophecy of her leaving us because she just gets frustrated because we won't ever do anything.
One of the things that I always say to the guys, practice this, and even the guys listening to this, here's a really good practice. Whenever you go to a restaurant, you decide where you want to sit. Because the old Faisal, what I used to do, and I've seen this so many times, is when you're in a restaurant, you go and say, table for two, please. And the waiter or waitress will go, yes, come this way. And the guy will be like, and just follow them and just sit down. I always say to the guys, say table for two. And then he or she, when they walk off, you just pause and then look back and they're like, what? And then say, I want to sit here. And I practice this. If the restaurant's full, there's only one table. Of course, that's obvious. But I always decide where I want to sit. I always say that place, that place, that place, or that place. And I consciously choose. I'm like, okay, which is the best ambient? Which is the best lighting? What are those things? But I'll make a decision. I always decide. And I remember I went on a date and there's an empty restaurant. Went in and the guy said, well, this is going to be packed in 1 hour. So I've only got that table free. I'm like, really? I said, we're going to be a couple of hours. And he says, no, I've only got that table free. So we sat down and we're there about 30 minutes. I wasn't happy with the seating. And I said to the guy, I want to sit there and that's where I want to enjoy my food. If you can't do that, I'm not going to cancel my order. And then my date was the first day. She's just looking at me. She's going, I don't know if I'm embarrassed or I'm really loving this.
Yeah.
And I said to her, this is the decision. And I was happy to walk out. I was like, I'm not sitting in a place that's substandard and there's no one there. And I finally moved, sat down. I was like, this is where I want to enjoy because I'm paying for the service. I'm paying for the food. Therefore, I will decide and choose.
Yeah.
She loved it.
Yeah. I think a lot of times we feel like, oh, there must be like, I was thinking of that scenario. It's like, oh, why did they sit me here? Oh, there must be a reason for this, they rather than just like questioning and saying, no, this is what I want. I've practiced that a lot too. When I go into restaurants, I'm not quite as, like directive with that, but I'll follow them. And if the table that they walk me to isn't what I want, and I'll look around and I'll say, well, I would rather have that table over there, and most of the time they're like, oh, okay, but yeah, I think it's just a matter of saying, this is what I want, and this is what I'm going to go for.
Yeah. And be willing to walk away. I've been in a
be
restaurant.
Willing to walk away.
Yeah. I was like, nah, it doesn't do it for me.
Yeah.
And even if they get upset, she's upset, I'm like, I can deal with it. But if I'm paying, I'm deciding.
All right. Well, I'm going to decide to end this conversation, even though it was I don't feel like we're finished. But I want to have time for some other conversations today. So thanks again for being part of the Nice Guy Show. If you like this episode, I recommend our episode on having high standards, because I think that's part of being decisive. A couple other things that I want to emphasize. We really want to reach more people. So subscribe to the show, give us likes. It helps with the algorithm. and recommend the show to your friends or men who could benefit from this, men who need to be more decisive. And we'll see you on the next one.